But let's jump to your way too early ranking.
That is very aggressive.
Let's look at 1 through 10, headlined by Ja'Marr Chase, coming off a Triple Crown season, absolute monster. Saquon Barkley, historic year, breaking 2K, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CD Lamb, Puka Nacua, and then 3 other receivers, the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, and Brian Thomas Jr. Let's start at the top, Matthew. Was it close at all between Chase and Saquon for number 1?
It was not for me. Look, I mean, obviously, monster year for Ja'Marr Chase. He gets paid as a result, but no one had more targets. No one had more receptions. No one had more receiving yards. No one had more receiving touchdowns than Ja'Marr Chase last year. He led all players in both red zone targets and end zone targets. And then you always look at okay, from the production last year, what could change from this year to next year? And for Ja'Marr Chase, it's all the same. T. Higgins is still there. Joe Burrow is still throwing on the ball. Mike Gesicki is still there. Same offense, same coach, same offensive system. Yeah. Maybe their defense is a little bit better, so they're not in as many shootouts. But I don't think their defense is going to be that significantly better. And Ja'Marr Chase, throughout his career, proud Fantasy Life investor, Ja'Marr Chase, by the way, has always produced. And so, to me, I think wide receivers, generally speaking, are safer and more consistent at a high level than running backs because of the injury history. And then you sort of go back to Saquon Barkley. And we love Saquon here. Saquon's awesome, right? He's amazing. But you sort of look at okay, why did Saquon produce the way he did last year? Because one of the concerns about Saquon going into last year, and we talked about this, I said, listen, the Eagles don't really throw to the running backs. And when they get in close, Jalen Hurts is going to steal a lot of goal line touches. Yeah. And both those things came true. The thing that we didn't expect was that Saquon Barkley would break off 60-yard touchdown runs once a game at least. And so it's just how comfortable are you that is going to sustain? When you get up to this high level, you have to sort of nitpick at 1 and 2, and that's what you're nitpicking here. Again, he's my number 1 running back, but if you want to, last year, when you include the playoffs, he had 482 touches. Woo. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, running backs coming off 300 touch seasons. 482 for Saquon. Now, again, he is built different than most human beings. His work ethic is off the charts. He's still young. He got extended by the Eagles, who are as smart a front office as there is in the NFL. They know what they've got in Saquon, but that's why Chase over Barkley for me.
You said nothing was going to change with Ja'Marr Chase. A small thing did change. $40 million a year, that changes. So the Bengals going to get their money's worth. So you can expect those same targets because of that money. So, yeah.
Absolutely. With Saquon, it was saying he is built different. He clearly is. But at the same time, obviously he's dealt with a lot of injuries. Derrick Henry is built different. Derrick Henry broke his foot a few years ago, and outside of that, has basically been healthy his entire career.
Right. And he came back. Everyone was oh, that's a year injury, and he came back in 6 weeks.
Came back for the playoffs. And with Saquon, he has dealt with it was a high ankle sprain a couple of years ago. Obviously, he tore his ACL. He's just been banged up. And obviously, he looked fully healthy last year, but always a concern with running backs. Lawrence, let's go to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's 4th on Matthew's list. Obviously, he has number 1 overall player in fantasy upside, but what do you think his workload is going to be like next year?
I expect the workload to go up just a little bit. In fact, see my man Matthew right here. We at the Combine. Matthew know everybody. He get his little tidbits out here. So I know some people, and I don't know a lot. But the people I do know, they know a little something. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get more. David Montgomery's still going to be there, but I expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get more closer to those 25.7 touches he got per game in the 3 games David Montgomery was out. We just talked about Saquon Barkley. I see Matthew has Bijan Robinson as his RB2. I would go into my fantasy drafts, and I would just take Jahmyr Gibbs as number 1. Even if you don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 20 to 25 touches a game, he just fell shy of 2,000 yards from scrimmage, sharing the workload with David Montgomery. That is insane. We're talking about Saquon Barkley as a guy who breaks these 60-yard runs, well, the other guy that does that is Jahmyr Gibbs. So Jahmyr Gibbs, to me, I'm going to have him as my RB1, which isn't something groundbreaking. He finishes running back 2 last year. But for a guy who averaged 32.5 fantasy points per game in the 3 games that David Montgomery was out, I just don't see how you pass on that big playability, because there's only about 3 running backs, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe running backs that you see as the guy.
Listen, I have all these guys inside my top 4. So, again, at this level, you have to nitpick. I'm not going to look at you weird if I'm in a draft and somebody says they take Gibbs over Barkley or Bijan. They're all awesome.
Yeah.
They're all going to have monster years. I think the numbers with David Montgomery active last year are more instructive, though. By the way, to your point, in those games, in the 14 games with David Montgomery active, Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 18.9 fantasy points per game. He got 16 touches and 103 yards from scrimmage. So you're telling me that Jahmyr Gibbs gets 16 touches with a shot at a touchdown. Again, remember, nobody had more touchdowns from scrimmage than Jahmyr Gibbs last year with 20. He's played 32 career games. He had 31 touchdowns as well. So again, scrimmage touchdowns, not rushing touchdowns, all of that. But I'll just give you a quick trivia question here. Here's the entire list of running backs that had at least 70 yards from scrimmage in all 17 games last year. Jahmyr Gibbs, that's the list. Like, I mean, there is floor and upside with Gibbs. I have him at 3 among running backs just because of the Montgomery factor. Ben Johnson's in Chicago. Does it take him a little while to adjust to a new offensive play caller? That's always a little bit different. Obviously, Saquon and Bijan have those backfields entirely to themselves. Yep. But you're nitpicking, they're all superstars.
And one more quick thing, and you're right. I think we should go more off of the numbers with Montgomery in. So that's 16 touches with Montgomery, 25 without. So one of those is really high. I would say it'd be in the middle. So that's 20-ish. I would say it goes there for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Matthew, probably the most divisive guy in your top 10, I think, will be Justin Jefferson, just because of the quarterback uncertainty. He's very likely going to have either someone who's never thrown an NFL pass in J.J. McCarthy, or maybe someone who's thrown 1 million passes in the NFL in Aaron Rodgers. Do you think that putting him at 5 kind of bakes in that uncertainty, or do you think that, like, we're having this exact same discussion last year, and Justin Jefferson was a monster?
And made me look smart. People were like, why do you have Justin Jefferson as a top 4 guy overall? I had him as a top 5 player overall, and people were like, oh, Sam Darnold, really? And I'm like, the man produced with Nick Mullins. Yeah. The man produced with Nick Mullins. And by the way, Sam Darnold ended up having a lot better season than anyone expected, but it didn't matter. The man produced with Nick Mullins. So yes, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers or Joe Flacco or Ryan Tannehill out of retirement or whoever is throwing him the ball, it doesn't matter. That's a rumor. That's a rumor out there that the Vikings have contacted Ryan Tannehill to come out and retire.
You should get another chance.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito's playing games in the NFL. Tannehill should as well.
Over the last 4 seasons, here's his ranks. Wide receiver 4, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 3. Like, he's never been worse than wide receiver 5 in a season, regardless of who's throwing him the ball. 4 straight seasons averaging 90 or more receiving yards per game. This is a guy who had an almost 30% target share last year. I would argue the emergence of Jordan Addison, a full year of healthy T.J. Hawkinson. The Vikings aren't stupid. Kevin O'Connell, reigning head coach, Kevin O'Connell, Jay Croucher's best friend, Kevin O'Connell.
Coach of the year.
Isn't a stupid man.
No.
And exactly. And this is not a guy who said, yeah, well, you know what? Because they had a shot at resigning Sam Darnold. They could have franchise tagged him. They could have brought him back, and they didn't. They were like, go ahead, Sam, because that's the confidence they have in J.J. McCarthy. That's the confidence they have in what they're going to do this offseason and that offensive system, which is always going to feature Justin Jefferson. He's always going to be open. Please continue to doubt Justin Jefferson and allow me to get him in the middle to late first round as opposed to the top 5 in the first round, which is where he should go.
I mean, I say the same thing about him I just said about Jamar Chase. Like, Jamar Chase, 40 mil, Justin Jefferson, 35 mil, like that type of dough. It shouldn't matter who the quarterback is. And the fact that Justin Jefferson has proven it, like you said, with our boy Nick Mullins, over there. So, I mean, wide receiver 5, if that's the worst he's been, then why would he be ranked any lower than that? So when it comes to August, and we know for a fact that J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback, do you keep him at wide receiver 5?
No.
Receiver 2.
Yeah.
5 overall.
5 overall.
Yep.
I mean, he's not my wide receiver 5.
Wide receiver. Oh, I'm tripping. Wide receiver 2.
He's
Definitely
my wide receiver 2, 5 overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not putting him above Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter what happens come August.
The thing with Jefferson is that, okay, so either the quarterback is going to play well, or the quarterback is going to play badly, and then he's in catch-up mode, and then you get the Nick Mullins situation.
Yeah, that was what that was. Yeah.
That's like, and he's putting up monster numbers there either way. So
again,
Jefferson is
I think too much is made. Quarterback play can obviously elevate a player, but too much is made on quarterback play. And, like, this is why no one wanted Malik Neighbors last year. It's the same argument. Like, I mean, and by the way, Justin Jefferson obviously has a much longer track record of success in the NFL than Malik Neighbors, but we just talked about it. Malik Neighbors played with some combo of Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito and finished as wide receiver on a team that was crappy, a team that's going to pick third overall in April, and he finished as wide receiver 6.
Yep.
And again, there was injuries to what, but still, like, no one that drafted Malik Neighbors was upset with the production they got out of him.
Indeed. Lawrence, Matthew has 7 wide receivers in his top 10 after the year of the running back, where Saquon Barkley wins Offensive Player of the Year, goes for 2K. Derrick Henry, a monster season as well. Josh Jacobs, even Jonathan Taylor at the end of the season. It was very much the year of the running back. Do you think that we are dismissing the RB renaissance that we saw last season?
Do I think we're dismissing it? I think, like, when I just said Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd take him number 1. I feel like you got to go into your drafts like this, right? You got to get at least one of these guys. You got to get at least one of these guys in this top 20 and then try to figure it out at wide receiver, because you want a guy who's in that 15 to 20 touch range. You look at a guy like Devon Achane, 22.5 fantasy points in the 11 games that Tua started last season, but that got thrown off because Tua missed games. He misses games sometimes, and then it just completely went off the ship because what Devon Achane brings is that receiving upside, and that's what he gets with Tua. So when you can get a guy like that at the bare minimum, but then you got guys above him like Derrick Henry and the guys in the top 10, Jonathan Taylor, those type of guys, you want to try to get at least one of those guys to anchor the running back room.
Yep.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.